It's not every day that I get to review a product and start with something I regret, which is to not have talked about this controller any sooner. Oh my gosh. This thing is something else. I've unboxed it about a week ago to get prepared and study it a little bit, and I did not expect. And I don't read specs. I don't read specs before reviewing. I wait till I have it in my hands to experience it. And then, you know, I do my due diligence and make sure I know everything about it. But every product I receive, I go in blind. And this one, yeah, the ZD Ultimate Legend, which was sent by Gadget Hyper. And if you're into controllers, you probably know this company by now, which have been probably the best place to source controllers that are not necessarily easily acquired, especially for the Western audience. And so Gadget Hyper are the ones who sent me this product so that I can review it for you guys. Of course, that has no impact on my opinions, no money changed hands, and they see the video at the same time as everybody else. But still, I want to go back to what I was saying a moment ago. Honestly, this controller left me in shock, and it's a good one. And yeah, you know what? I'm so excited to present it to you guys, so let's dive in. If you know about ZD, specifically the O+, you know that it can do a lot of different things, change modules, and this also has this, what some people at least I feel would call gimmick, a charging dock, modules for your sticks. You have different options. Even without taking all that into consideration, what you have here is just amazing. A dongle and a little box, which we'll open in a moment. Cable, braided, different D-pads, paddles for your back paddles, a manual, what I would assume is a warranty card, and a cheat sheet. I really like the cheat sheet. Thank you. The controller goes for $100. If you buy the controller with the charging dock, it's $115, but you can buy the dock separately for $20. Each modules are $10 a pop, and you can also buy faceplates. What's in the box? Let's find out. Different buttons in case you prefer to have the Nintendo layout. By default, it's going to be the Xbox layout. The charging dock with the prongs to charge. And one thing I like, and that's the same case with the O+ that I reviewed not too long ago, is you don't only have the ability to charge the controller, which by the way, this is what it looks like when it's all plugged in, but you also have extra USB-A's to use as a hub. Your USB-C slot for power, and of course another slot right here up top. That will look something like that. There's a RGB at the bottom. This is the charging dock. Then you have the different modules, and always comes with a pre-installed stick cap, well, a skirt rather, and then of course we have our module underneath. And you have different modules to choose from. What comes by default on the controller are TMRs. Talking about the buttons, it's also from a brand, their micro switch from a brand I hadn't heard before, HCNHK micro switches. So this is what we have for face buttons, D-pad. I'm not sure what we have for bumpers and back buttons, but they are all micro switches. Same goes for the top extra buttons, 2 of them. Same goes for the bumpers, micro switches, and these are button based. But if you don't put the micro switch, you have a Hall effect trigger, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 more back buttons, which are also on micro switch, except those extra ones, which I'm pretty sure they're tactile. 6 buttons, they have micro switch all over, great sticks, you can change them, but I assure you, there is so much more to this product. I'm so excited to present it to you guys. I'm sorry for having waited this long. All right, so let's plug it in. I don't want to say weak because it's not weak, but it's probably not the best execution that I've seen, is just the RGB overall. Because it's clear that the light goes through here and it's being diffused through this tube. Really, when you look at the naked eye, you really see the light fade. I don't mind it as much. And really, it is a compliment. If RGB is the one thing I can nitpick on this product, it says a lot about just how good everything else is. The faceplate is frosty, and the faceplate is also magnetic. I love how they printed like different parts of the controller on the backboard, metal rings around the sticks. You also have anti-skid rings. You have gyro. One thing that is wild, and very, very few controllers on the market have that. The only other controllers I can think of that do that are goalie kits. Well, some goalie kits, because they seem to not be using that as of late. You have both rumble motors, but also HD rumble motor. If you are using this on a Switch 1 and Switch 2, you are getting the full HD experience in terms of your rumble. And if you're using it outside of Switch and you want a rotary, traditional, good quality first party rumble, you have that as well, but it doesn't stop there. Impulse trigger. So you have rumble in your triggers, and you can also use that for features like the more you push it down, the more it vibrates. It's not adaptive triggers like you find on the DualSense or the Apex 4 and Apex 5, but it's the next best thing. 6 rumble motors that you have in this controller. 2 in the triggers and 4 in the grips. Now, really, if there's one thing I could effectively nitpick, you do not have a 3.5 millimeter jack at the bottom. Audio redirection is just not possible, but as far as gyro redirection, it is possible. You have all those different options in terms of D-pad. That is something unique that I haven't seen anywhere else, and it's actually a very nice D-pad, and this is the one that I'm going to use. It's kind of good for everything. I really like that D-pad style. As far as the back paddles, they are similar in style to what you find on the DualSense Edge, but they are not metallic. You can have your middle finger rest on them and then have your ring finger rest on the other 2 extras. And with the backboard, you have a slightly, very slightly rubbery textured grip that you have on each end. What I'm seeing, what I'm holding, what I'm feeling is just really awesome, and it feels premium. So let's jump straight into software and see where there may be some things that you can get all of that either on iOS or on Android. There is no PC software, but if you look through their marketing, you might see that there is. That's because they're working on getting the software ready, but at this point in time, it is not available. At the same time, if you are making a firmware update, which I had to do, that will happen on PC. ZD is doing a lot of things right, but if there's one thing I think is borderline unacceptable, is having a terms and condition that you absolutely need to agree to before you can get into the app, and a language that people cannot understand. Sure, you can take a screenshot and run it through Google Translate, but in my opinion, that is just unacceptable to have people sign to something that they literally cannot read because they don't understand the language. And I understand this is a Chinese first product, but right now this is a product that is being presented by collaborative partners like Gadget Hyper to the international market. I believe this should change because I consider that to be just inappropriate. And look, I'm ready to praise them, but this is something I do have to point out. I don't think that's okay, and I think this is something that should be addressed as fast as possible. So just to get back to the business at hand, I could not get to this point before I accepted those terms and conditions. But once you're there, you will probably be met in Chinese. And the first thing you want to do, which is going to be the same if you're in Chinese, is look top right. You'll see this little thing here, and you just want to select English because otherwise that's exactly what you'll see. And so you can just go ahead and put English. You can select the controller that you're trying to adjust, in this case, the Ultimate Legend. Even if you're using this on another device, you can always access the controller at all times. So in this case, if I go ahead and do scan, because this is currently powered, because this is currently working, it should see it like it does now, and you can just hit connection. You can have different profiles that you can save, button mapping. So anything that you want to remap, you can do through the software. You can adjust the dead zone of your triggers. I'm going to make sure that there is no dead zones whatsoever. And if you want to have your regular long throw, or if you want to have a short throw, you have them both. I'm going to keep it long, but especially if you like to play shooters and you don't want to use the hair trigger, short may be the better option of the two. And whenever you're done with an option, you want to make sure to save so that it sends the changes to the controller. If we go to joystick tuning, you can invert your axes, you can address your dead zones, you can address the curve, you cannot add any points. So you're working with 3 points. You want like a very aggressive curve, or if you want something very slow, you can adapt it. And I also appreciate that you see numbers adjust on the fly. You can also swap your left joystick and D-pad, right joystick and D-pad, or you can both joystick with. Okay, I guess you can, I guess this is just invert the joysticks. And then the step size, depending on the modules that you use, this may not have the same impact on every modules. Some, it may not work as well. Some, in fact, it may completely destroy the feeling of the sticks. I don't expect you to break anything with that, but it's a trial and error kind of feature. So if you want to test this out, make sure that you expect different results on different modules. Reroute your gyro to a stick. So you can do left stick, right joystick, and you have different activation modes. So if you want it to be always on, if you want it to be when you hold, or a toggle, you have the pick of the litter here. You also have a mapping type. So car is essentially going to use your, I always forget, I believe that is roll, and then fire should use your yaw. As far as I understand it, you can select what the key is to trigger. So you have every single button on the controller can be used And then you can also address the sensitivity. As far as gyro, you don't have the most features on the market, but it's nice that the option exists. Vibration, you have your left grip motor, your right grip motors. You'll only see 4 settings because when it comes to HD Rumble, as far as I understand, you cannot adjust it. HD Rumble has a behavior of its own when it comes to this controller, as it should. You don't adjust those motors. This is for the rotary motors, and this is for your impulse triggers. Native is whenever you play a game that has native impulse triggers on the X input mode, it'll just vibrate. Stereo vibe is whenever the grip vibrates, so will the triggers. Trigger pulse is the more you push, the more it vibrates. Kind of like a throttle or a brake in gas. If you play racing games and you like to feel that shake in your triggers, that's probably what you would want to use. You can mention if it falls asleep after 15 minutes, 16 minutes, or just never. You can address your RGB. So you have independent adjustment for that little RGB right there. You can have a cycle of colors. You can also just shut it all together with this button always. So if you're tired of seeing it, you can just push that and it'll cycle between different options. You also have macros that you can do here. You can test the controller to make sure that everything works. Very important, the report rate. So on USB wired, you can go up to this level, which is supposed to be 3000. I'm not sure exactly what it means here in Chinese, but it is up to 3000. You have through the 2.4 dongle, you can go up to 1000 Hertz, and through Bluetooth, you can go up to 250. The higher the report rate, the more battery it's going to use. And so that is it for the software. We'll start with something very different. So I talked about step size, and there's something I noticed that I want to show you guys, which is they recommend 74, right? What happens if I put it up to 255 and I just start rotating my sticks? And pay attention to the pulling rate. So it's going to cap much lower to what it's supposed to be. And see what happens if I lower it. Actually, I'm going to do that as I keep turning. Suddenly we're going higher in pulling rate. Lower it again. Going higher in pulling rate. Not the best circles, my apology, lowering. And that will go all the way up to if you put it at 1. So this is something to keep in mind. You know, I guess you can achieve higher than the pulling rate that they even advertise as long as you keep the step size low. What you'll feel in terms of difference is going to depend on you, but just know that it's a thing. You can adjust that based off of what you would prefer, starting with the one that comes with. And not only did I break my record on the very first run, it feels amazing. If you are thinking of getting the ZD Ultimate Legend, you don't need to buy extra modules, but if you do buy extra modules, they'll give you different experiences. But one thing for sure, what you get stock, the TMR that comes native with the controller are, wow, they're amazing. Super well designed, great feel, great experience, great linearity. I don't test those, but I'm just going by how I feel. That was really, really good. Easy to recommend. Then we have the ALPS, and going back to ALPS, I realized that I hadn't played with ALPS in so long, and they feel good. No issues there whatsoever. You can tell that it's a different technology, and TMR and Hall effect have come so far. I think the only person for who I would recommend ALPS is if you're coming from a first-party controller console, Xbox or PlayStation, and you've only used first-party controllers. But if you've been used to Hall effect or TMR, just there's no point really. It's not that it's bad. It's just there's no point. So I wouldn't personally recommend the LPS unless you know that you do better, or this is like you want to stick to that and you're okay with that, then sure. Otherwise, just don't go for it. Then there was the Puyo White, and this is a very aggressive stick. I was surprised at how reliable it was at the very start of your actuation, at the very start of your radius. It was very good at being precise, but the moment you got past the midpoint, it just cranked up. So it's a very aggressive stick, which is going to be very interesting for someone that plays a shooter and has both an SMG and a sniper. You're going to be able to be precise as long as it's tight. But if you need to crank it all the way up to rapidly juke left or right, you're going to be able to do that with that stick as well. It was quite pleasant. I just don't think it's the most linear stick, but what was pre-baked felt good. And then the very last one, which is what I currently have on the controller, is the JS13 Pro. Oh my gosh, that is obviously a stick for someone that has such a muscular thumb, because you'll need a lot of control. This is a very, very fast. And by the way, this is the only one that had a noticeable difference in tension. It was lower than the rest, so it's definitely easier to maneuver. And it'll also be very, very responsive, very snappy as a stick. So if you are very good with control, something that I'm comfortable saying is past my prime for sure, but you know, if you're young and you've been training for a long time and you're like really into competitive and you need something that is going to be super fast but at the same time will give you great control, this is a very good stick. Not my stick, but a very good one nonetheless. And so there it is. Let's move to the audio test. We do have stick tremor. It moves a little bit like it is doing now. There is 0 axis snapping, no problems there. For stick circularity, if you put your peripheral dead zone at 25, you basically get the full range. And if you put your peripheral dead zone in the app at 0, that's what you get. So essentially, you can tweak between these 2 meters to whatever you want using the peripheral dead zone. This is not something we see a whole lot of as opposed to being raw and calibrated. With the dead zone at 0, it's safe to say that you have no inner dead zone at all. And you also have no gap dead zone. It is consistent with every increment. The controller doesn't really have outer dead zone if you put the peripheral dead zone at 0. So that's essentially how you're going to tweak it, but it's quite impressive how receptive those sticks are. They're really tweaked to perfection, and you have full control in terms of the software as well. So yeah, that's a superb execution. And for stick tension, they all felt about the same at about approximately a 5 TGF variation. So I would say within margin of error, except the JS13 Pro, which was definitely lower by approximately 10 TGF. So 70 for the average, 60 for the JS13 Pro. And for stick resolution, you can go up to 12 bits. Truly, that should depend on the module that you use and the step size that you use. But I would say, honestly, with how well these sticks are tweaked and how flexible the software is, I wouldn't even have concerns for that, because you have the range to address it the way you see fit. Diagonal focus, it can be very good. The rolling test, it is quite prone to doing an adjacent arrow, so that could be challenging. Adjacent direction is super easy to do. Probably one of the easiest controllers I've seen. And ZD, if ever you see this video, I don't know if you can implement a 4-way D-pad, because I think that would help a great deal for a lot of people, because I'd say this is a little too sensitive with this product. Accidental inputs, unfortunately, because we don't have a 4-way and because this is quite a sensitive D-pad, I'd say it's more prone than the average. Center pivot, we do have one. It's possible to not hit any keys. Actuating from the center, it's probably one of the easiest D-pads I've ever seen when it comes to that. And especially with that D-pad, I mean, literally, it's like if you have a D-pad stick, I don't know what to call it, but you can absolutely play a platform, like probably not a fighter, but a platformer using just the center and keeping your thumb, because it's so comfortable. And the center at all times, you absolutely could. It's just going to be very, very easy to do adjacent arrows to the point that it could be problematic. For your triggers, you don't really have a dead zone at the start. They're super sensitive, and you barely, I wouldn't even call that a millimeter. You barely have a dead zone at the end of your triggers as well once it's calibrated. For dampening, if you use the button mode, of course, the hair trigger mode, you don't feel any dampening. That goes without saying. But if you use the analog portion, there's a little bit of it. It's tastefully done. You know, I'm not usually the biggest fan of that, but here it doesn't bother me at all. And for hair trigger, this is a proper button activated. I will say the mechanism is recessed. Putting it on is fine. Taking it off can be kind of a pain, but beyond that, it is there and it's button based, so it's magnificent. And of course, the button is a micro switch. Considering what I saw in Gamepad Tester, genuinely, I thought it was going to be worst. I'm not saying by any means that it's good. This is an area where this controller is lacking. The D-pad is nowhere near as reliable. It feels so good, but it's not reliable in terms of just quick inputs. Definitely somewhere where there's a lot of room for improvement. Of course, if we could have a 4-way D-pad implemented, or maybe it's there and I just don't know the shortcut, but I think that it's going to be a necessity if this controller is to be taken seriously for fighters. Now, thankfully, what it doesn't have in precision, it absolutely does in comfort, and in games like platformers, it's going to be easier to work with. Maybe with some very competitive platformers like Super Meat Boy, it wouldn't, but as far as something like Celeste, unless you're going for like a speed run, I believe you're going to have a good time, especially for the comfort, but you may find yourself dying a couple of times because it didn't exactly happen the way you intended. And when looking at run, what's interesting with this game is that by itself, it's like it has a 4-way implemented in the way that the controllers are perceived. So this is an issue that I don't have in terms of like fighting the D-pad, the proper directions and all with this game. It's just not an issue here. So that lets me experience what a 4-way D-pad could look like. The comfort is phenomenal, that I've said many times, and really, I can't stress this enough. It's one of the better feeling D-pads for sure, especially with that module I have on top right now. And this is another area where it shines. The triggers feel extremely comfortable. You can have native impulse trigger if using Bluetooth, which is also very cool. The triggers don't require a whole lot of pressure to actuate, so it's very easy to dial in, and I don't believe they would cause a lot of fatigue over time. And they're wide, they feel good. That's definitely another area where this controller is very, very well executed. And yeah, the rumble feels good, man. What a great experience. All right, let's move to performance before the conclusion. And performance, contrary to my habits, I'm gonna thank Franek Ziemien. I hope I said your name wrong if ever you see this video. Thank you very much for the tests you put on the website. These are not my tests conducted by myself, but they are tests conducted using P82, and so I know that they are reliable. And as you can see here, when looking at cable, we can have blazing fast speed, both for sticks and buttons. And if you're using the dongle, that's where maybe an area where this controller is not the fastest on the market, but as long as you use it wired, you pretty much have peak performance compared to anything else that's available. Would I have preferred a faster speed using dongle? Of course I would have, but the fact that you can at least achieve what is essentially almost as fast as the fastest controllers on the entire planet when using cable, for me, it's absolutely acceptable. And so here we are, the ZD Ultimate Legend. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect it to be this good, especially after having reviewed the O Plus that had all those different modules, so many things. I thought, no way the Ultimate Legend is going to be better than the O Plus, minus, better pulling rate, better latency. Okay, that's cool. But I just thought as a concept that the Ultimate Legend was going to be a lower tier O Plus. Boy, was I wrong. Now, the O Plus is amazing. It's still also one of the best controllers I reviewed in the entire year. But ZD have pushed themselves even further with the Ultimate Legend. It is a beast of a controller. It covers absolutely every ground. If you're on, minus consoles, of course, but if you're on a PC and you want something that'll play for your Switch, this is my favorite controller of 2025 because it gives you everything. It has record-breaking latency. It has amazing pulling rate. It has so many packed features. It has a great app overall. There's really nothing I can fault this controller for other than the very small nitpicks I can have, which at this point is more to find something to dislike. Genuinely, if I was making some kind of controller awards of 2025, this would at the very least be a contender as the best controller I reviewed in the entire year. And let me tell you, this would have great chances of being the controller. That's how good and how impactful and how much of an impression that it left on me. Especially if you're the kind of person that is looking for that one controller to rule them all, so to speak. Oof. I mean, if PC is your platform, if Switch is your platform, if phones or tablets are your platforms, I don't see how you can do better than that. It has so much going for it. It'll leave you so satisfied with this experience, how it feels, how it plays, how you don't have to compromise on the features. And on top of that, I'm not trying to say that it is a cheap, inexpensive controller, but at $100 for everything that you have, and default comes with TMR and they feel great. ZD has been a company that left me in a little bit of a jaw drop state last time I reviewed them. Now it's more than that. It's becoming a love story that is starting. This is the start of a great relationship, and yeah, I want to wine and dine this company and their products because I'm excited. I'm excited for the future of ZD, and right now this company is just cracking open the windows, going on the rooftop, and belting out to the world, hey, I'm here. See me. See what I'm doing. And boy, do I see you guys. You have made... okay, you know what? I'm just glazing at this point. I sound like a shill, which I'm not. At least I'd like to believe I'm not. But for this product, yeah, you see, I'm like, I'm drooling a little bit here. But all kidding aside, honestly, what a great execution. And not just for what is there as a package, but even in terms of accessories. You have the faceplate, you have the modules, you have the charging dock that doubles down as a hub. You have it packed with a bunch of different D-pads. If anything, if I could complain about anything, actually, you know what? Maybe I have one complaint, is you don't have a whole lot of options in terms of your stick caps. You're really stuck with what you have, but that's not to say that you could not replace them. You actually easily could. I mean, as you can see here, different stick caps. That was very easy to change, so not a problem. If that's something you want to do, not a problem at all. Actually, you know what? Let me put this down and bring this video to a close. Guys, thank you very much for clicking and watching. Again, if you're interested in getting one, Gadget Hyper is the best place to get one. There's going to be links in the description. And as always, I hope this video was to your liking. If you have any comments, make sure to drop them in the comment box. Make sure to hit the like if you enjoyed this content and to subscribe to not miss any future one. I'm Clef. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.